up to you if you want to sit. It's fine. Yeah, just sit down. It's fine. Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome to Inner Space Wembley. Our today's theme, the topic is charity begins at home, and for that we have Matthew with us. Matthew is a science graduate and former spiritual sceptic, and 20 years ago, an interest in self-development led him to explore Raj Yoga meditation. Matthew currently based in London. He worked as a head of business growth for IT consultants. So, thank you, Matthew.
Hi. So it's a hybrid event, in person and online. We have one lovely guest with us physically at the moment. Thank you for coming, and hello to everybody online. So, as Kapil said, my name is Matthew. I've been practicing Raj Yoga meditation for the last 20 years now. Feels like a few months ago, but time flies, right? So, and this topic, charity begins at home. So, yeah, let's see what comes up. So I thought maybe just to take a minute of silence before we start. I think we've all had probably quite busy, active days. It's just nice to practice what we preach, right? A little bit of meditation. So just a minute's silence. Thank you, and Om Shanti, greeting of peace. So as the information around the topic said, we can have different meanings behind charity begins at home. Usually it's used to indicate that it's good to serve, first of all, those closest to us, our family and friends, and then we can think about serving society or the world at large. But as it mentioned in the text for the topic, also considering what is even closer to home than my family, and that is myself. So this aspect of being charitable towards myself. And this is an interesting one because in the teachings of Raj Yoga we learn that, and many other teachings actually talk about this these days, that the way we move forward as human beings is from the inside out. In today's world, a lot of people have got caught up with trying to seek contentment and value from external things, possessions or status or whatever it is. But when you've been around a little bit of time, you realize that genuinely none of these external things bring you any real lasting contentment. It's all very, very temporary. So charity begins at home in terms of what do actually, if external things aren't going to serve me, then what's really going to serve me, and how does serving myself lead to helping me serve my family, my friends, and others? It's a good question. I had a quote from a famous author, actually, who wrote one of the one of the best-selling books of all time called The Prophet, written by Khalil Gibran. And the quote is, "I slept and I dreamed that life is all joy. I woke and I saw that life is all service. I served and I saw that service is joy." And I thought that was really beautiful, right? So deep, such a short quote. We use a lot of words, but then you read these couple of sentences and you think, well, words can be quite powerful when they're used properly. We hear so much stuff, so much information, but that was really beautiful. So this idea that, when we really think about what it means to be a human being, that our true nature is one of generosity, kindness, wanting to serve and help others. If you're having a good day, then somebody comes in the street and asks you for directions. This is my experience. You almost want to take them where they want to go, You start explaining and you think, oh, I'll show you. Oh, and you realize it's like 10 miles. You think, no, I can't really show you, but at least you can show them on Google Maps or help them with directions. But it's that natural desire to help, right? And yet we have days where so much stuff has happened and maybe stuff that we feel has gone wrong, we're exhausted, and it's like, talk to the hand. You just don't want to engage with anyone. And Londoners are very good at that. They've made it an art. Head down, just get what you can. And it's understandable because we need to protect our energy. There's so much craziness around us that it's understandable that a lot of people are now in survival mode. That a lot of people these days have completely lost touch with the essence of who I am and got distracted with lots of external things, mobile phones, material possessions, everything. And the human connection has suffered, but also the connection with myself, going back to this charity begins at home, the real connection with myself. When we talk about joy, you talk about going somewhere when we have a good time. The phrase we use is, I enjoyed myself. Interesting phrase, isn't it? I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed myself with others, but I enjoyed myself. And it's the real art form of being able to enjoy one's own company. And if I can have joy in that, then I have a chance of being able to spread that joy. But my capacity can be diminished because there's so many demands and so much energy gets used on maintaining all the other stuff. So there's so much information on positive thinking, and there's so many spiritual paths that you can choose from these days, and it's difficult to know what's going to work for me, what's true, what's not true, increasingly so. Really, since the information age exploded in the 80s, it's got crazier and crazier, trying to discern what's useful information, what's not. I can only speak to Raj Yoga from my own experience of having experienced 30 plus years with no meditation and no belief in God. I was a real devout atheist and very skeptical of spirituality. And I studied genetics at university, so I got very much into science and had that sort of arrogance that I thought that, science will be able to explain everything. And this spirituality stuff's just a bit airy-fairy and not very practical. I was wrong, but that's where I was at the time. I did believe in being kind. I believed in human nature, but I just didn't believe in the more philosophical stuff. And I think that's the big difference with Raj Yoga is that I'd studied a lot of stuff on positive thinking and personal development, but even that didn't bring any lasting happiness. It was like a crutch, a bit like going to the gym, or it's something you had to do regularly just to keep stable, but it wasn't life transforming. It made life better, more positive, but it wasn't transforming. So the real difference with Raj Yoga I found, and beginning that journey of charity, beginning with the self, is understanding myself as a soul. In Raj Yoga we teach, the main lesson is that I'm a soul. I'm not this physical body. I'm not defined actually even by my experiences in this life. My true self is eternal and always constant. And that self is the one we were starting to talk about earlier. It's the self that at the core experiences joy constantly, experiences stable feelings of generosity and kindness and compassion, and the natural nature of wanting to give to others, of serving. And the basic problem is that I've forgotten that's who I am, and when I start to remember that's who I am, it's still a bit of a journey because I've lost so much power. It's a bit like starting with a torch with a nearly dead battery, I get a glimmer of hope, a little light that I can see when I start to practice seeing myself as a soul. And it varies from person to person. Some people it's like, wow, straight away, and others it's like, oh, I've been doing this for years, and it's slow progress. And that's fine, everybody has their own journey. But I know from hearing so many stories that if I do it consistently every day, if I take time out, and this is what meditation is in Raj Yoga, it's actually remembering who I am as a soul. There's no sort of mantras or not this idea of trying to make the mind go beyond thoughts in terms of stopping thoughts, because good luck with that. The mind is designed to think, but it's more about understanding who I am really and connecting with that truth. And then the mind will naturally start to calm down and follow that energy of the soul, the peaceful energy. So the biggest charity for me is taking time out to study the knowledge of the soul, the connection with the self as a soul, the connection with the divine, if you're prepared to explore it. I wasn't at first. It's not really a roadblock, because you get so many insights just from connecting with the self as a soul. What you'll find is that energy of who you are is very closely aligned to the energy of the divine. That original sense of self is very close to the only difference with the divine, or the supreme soul as we call it, him, her, is that one is always in that state of perfection, whereas we go through the human experience and we go through this cycle of remembering and forgetting. And it's at this time in the human cycle where we really need to remember. Life is giving us a lot of signals, not so subtle anymore, that globally we're on the wrong track. It gives us signals in all areas, starting from our own mental health, our own physical health, the state of our physical wealth, struggling with that, relationships, time pressure, and it just goes out from there, more externally focused, socio-economic problems, political, environmental, you name it. There's a lot of signals, right? And this stems from this principle that we don't actually understand how powerful we all are. That aspect of our self-respect has also got lost. We don't necessarily understand the effect we have on other people, but also globally on nature as well, and the environment. And the world as it is today, we all are responsible for. Even if we're young, old, it doesn't matter. We're all responsible for the energy we put out. So what is the biggest charity? Is it something, it can be really overwhelming when you hear that, right? Because you think, I'm just having problems getting through the day. I can't think about global problems. But what is the greatest charity? It's the act of being peaceful. It's the greatest charity, You think about any situation you're in, you think about the type of person you'd want to support you. Do you want an angry person when you're going through a tough day? Is that do you want to come across more angry people? It sounds like a silly question, but just by way of contrast. But we look for, when we think about people we like to have around us, people that have all these qualities, isn't it? Peace and love and compassion. And so I have to ask myself the question, am I that person for myself, first of all? How do I talk to myself in my own mind, It's one of the reasons people give up meditation. Because when they first start to meditate, they find out how they talk to themselves. We find out, right? Yeah? And it's horrendous. If somebody else talked to you like that, you would want nothing to do with them. And yet we can't run away from ourselves, Literally this phrase, our own worst enemies, in terms of, because we have a very peaceless relationship with ourselves. So again, what's the solution in Raj Yoga? So literally, if I'm doing what I've always done, which is engaging 99.9% of my energy with what I have to do in the day and where I have to be and work and all that stuff, then I'm going to keep losing power. We're going to keep in the same direction. And the simple solution is that I start to develop the discipline to take some time out in my day to actually pull my attention away from all of that and start to connect with myself as a soul, as a being of peace. And, we can't hear this advice often enough because, I used to go to lots and lots of talks. I still listen to quite a few, and I recognize some faces here, and I'm thinking, well, the energy outside is so negative that we do need to hear this stuff and take support from good company. I'd also, teaching the meditation course for the last 19 years, I know 100% that when people say it's not working for me and I ask them about their meditation routine, they're not doing it. I've been through periods where not long periods where I've not done it, but days where I've done less. And you very quickly find out the difference, especially if you've had a routine for a while. And it's good to have these ups and downs. You learn a lot, you become more wise and experienced through the fluctuations. Obviously, the idea is to go beyond fluctuations and become stable, but it's about routine and how much time am I giving myself in the day. And then you get the other argument, I haven't got time. Really, not an excuse anymore. A self-fulfilling prophecy. I haven't got time to meditate. Basically, I haven't got time to look after myself. I haven't got time to, be charitable to myself. And within that is the seed of not being able to help anyone else in any meaningful way. Because if I become disempowered and I can't feel peaceful in my own company, whatever I try and do, even if I'm trying to do charitable acts with other people, if the energy is peaceless, I'm doing more harm than good. That's my experience. Now, I've got to start somewhere. So I'm not saying, oh, we shouldn't try and help others until we become perfect. Again, that's not practical. But I just think part of being kind to myself is actually talking to myself, giving myself these realities which can sometimes sound harsh. You know, I found that being compassionate to the self, there's a difference between being nice and being kind. You know, nice is like, can be it depends how everybody's got different interpretations of words, but sometimes I need to be direct with myself, you know, that's part of being disciplined. Okay, so I might say to myself, okay, I've had a slack day where I've not meditated. I need to talk to myself and say, look, you know, Matthew, that if you don't take time for meditation tomorrow like you haven't done today, you're just going to feel worse, isn't it? And I say, yeah, it's true. I talk to myself like this. So that's kind. Might not sound too nice. It might sound a bit, ooh, I have to be a parent to myself in a way. And then other times, you know, I need really gentle input from the self. And again, comparing when a good friend of mine goes through a crisis, how would I talk to them? How am I talking to myself? And start to become aware and pay attention to that inner dialogue. So the combination of taking time out for meditation and also how I use my mind in terms of how I talk to myself are the greatest charities for the self, and will gradually help to empower me and build a growing reservoir of peaceful energy inside me. And the other thing about understanding myself as a soul, this one thing is knowing where it is, where I am, you know, behind the eyes, in the center of the forehead. You know, if you're getting to know someone, you need to know where to find them, right? So we know how to find our friends physically. We have their address, but I need to know my own address as a soul, so that otherwise, what am I going to focus on in meditation? I'm trying to focus on myself as a soul, but where is it? Is it in the big toe? Is it floating around somewhere? So in Raj Yoga, we need to know. We learn where the soul is. It's where these two lines connect, pretty much in the middle of the brain. It's very important to know where the soul is. And then just imagining myself as this tiny point of eternal light. It's not a physical light, but the best way we could draw it, if we draw it, is this like a tiny star that's radiating out all this beautiful energy. And understanding that the true quality of every human being of every soul is the same. It's the same qualities. It's purity, peace, love, you know, joy, truth, these things. And if I say these words without the experience of meditation, they're just words. You know, everything's lost its power, but I need to explore in meditation, how does it feel to be peaceful? It's a question, you know, you can ask yourself questions in meditation. When you try to engage the mind's a bit like a child, gets very distracted. Starts walking on chairs and mentally, I mean, you know, we go all over the mind. It's healthy for a child, but for the mind, it gets distracted and goes all over the place. Even when we're adults, that's not so good. You know, so the first problem is focusing in meditation, isn't it? First of all, I come across all the negative thoughts that we were talking about earlier, like you're no good, or you made this mistake again, what are you doing? And probably worse than that as well. So also having realistic expectations of the meditation process is important. We talked about earlier why people quit. The main reason people quit is they think they're uniquely bad at meditating. This is something I come across all the time. And often people don't say it in a group because it's like, it's just me, you know? This is one of the things I really love about good company and spiritual conversations is you realize that everybody's in the same boat, you know? Struggle, talk really badly to myself, embarrassed really of repeating some of the stuff that I say to myself in my own head. I think that I'm the only one that is, the mind's so poor at concentrating that I just can't meditate, and I'm wasting my time, wasting everybody else's time. You know, very depreciating negative talk that we're all used to. So just understanding that that's actually part of the process, that when I start to practice going into silence, taking time out to meditate, I'm going to come across this very negative voice, this very distracted mind that runs all over the place. And one of the first steps is just accepting myself as I am now, knowing that's not who I really am, and I can move past that state. And I think the other thing about Raj Yoga that's so important to understand, and about the soul, is that there's no such thing as original sin, as it's called in some Western belief systems. That the soul, we all actually start off perfect and pure. So it's not that we're having to change ourselves away from this negative persona. We're actually having to remember who we really are, and then the false stuff we've acquired falls away from us. And I think that it's an important point to understand, because when I first studied positive thinking, it felt a bit like human beings are naturally a bit horrible and a bit nice, and you need to focus more on the nice side, otherwise you'll have more of the horrible side, which is not 100% inspiring, because there's always that foundation of, oh, there's something wrong with me, or I could be bad. There's that sort of subconscious belief, that lack of self-respect that is festering away underneath. I think it sounds like a very small difference, but understanding that the soul is actually completely positive, that all of you, your true nature is completely pure, completely positive, and that over time we forget and we start to connect too much with things outside of us. We become distracted and disempowered, and then we start to define our identity by what other people say about us, what society says about us. You know, like you're good if you're wealthy, one of the big ones these days, or if you're famous, or if you've got more stuff, you are successful. Now, there's nothing wrong with physical wealth, don't get me wrong, but it's when I start to take my sense of identity from outside things, when I start to think my value is based on how much stuff I've got, or what I do for a living, or any of that stuff, or what people say about me, which can be very cruel, let's face it, or what society says about me, you know, all the negative things I'll have heard since I came into this world, all that stuff. If I start to allow that to define me, then I'm going to feel very bad about myself, isn't it? So what is it? It's a lack of a knowledge, truth about who I am, and it's a lack of power, knowledge and power, not physical power. You know, you say this, everything's got tainted, hasn't it? Have to be careful with any word, like not power as in worldly power, but a much more powerful power, spiritual power, which is a power of peace. That is a world transformer. The power of anger is a world destroyer. Power of peace. Do we want more peaceful world or a more angry world? Good. Glad to hear that. And it starts with me, you know. I don't have to worry about changing the world with any big gestures. But if I work on being even 1% more peaceful, then all the people that I normally interact with in the day, I then become a very charitable person. Because I'm bringing peace into interactions. This is the biggest charity. First of all, for the self. Secondly, comes into my relationships with others. And that power will spread. And you can see it with the Brahma Kumaris, not just the Brahma Kumaris. There are many organizations that do very good work, but I think about the Brahma Kumaris, and for me, you know, coming from being a total skeptic, the first thing that struck me was when I went to a center and sat in a meditation, it was just the feeling of peace in the place. And I just thought, I want some more of that. And I realized it was the people there. It was the energy they were radiating. And yet they're all volunteers. They don't, you know, the organization doesn't get any funding from outside. It's all contributions from students. And yet it's grown so much since humble beginnings in the 1930s. It's now, you know, in 100 and however many countries there are in the world, most of them, there's more and more countries every year, isn't there? But it's 150, 60. There's like 8,000 centers around the world, and millions of people have done the course. And it's not based on any dogmatic doctrine. It's based on spreading the power of peace through my own example. And then when you have that for yourself, and you start to build your capacity that you can share that with others. It goes back to this thing of, you know, when I'm in a good mood, I'll happily, somebody asks me for directions, I'll almost want to take them to where they're going. I'm so, you know, it's a natural nature of generosity. But when I build the power of peace, what happens is that at some point I have enough good feelings in myself that I can deal with all my stuff in the day, and I still have some left. And then I want to serve, because I'm tapping into that. I've got enough power. I've got an understanding of who I am as a soul. I've accumulated enough power through the practice of meditation, and I naturally want to share that with others. And that is literally my experience. You know, up to the age of 30, I was thinking, I need financial security, which is fine, but I was focused just on that. And I thought, when I'm successful, I'll do charity stuff. Because I just didn't have the capacity. You know, I wanted to help people, but I was so worried about just being able to create stability in my own life. I was trying to do it on an external level, which only works in a very temporary way, because even if you become financially stable, something else will shake you. You know, because really what the problem is, I don't have any spiritual power. So anything I acquire is only going to be temporary. The interesting thing that happened to me when I did the Raj Yoga meditation course was that as soon as I finished the course myself, I wanted to teach it to others, because it made such a massive difference to me in terms of just feeling better. I mean, that's the bottom line, right? Feeling better, feeling more peaceful. I started to come home from work and just whatever I was doing and think, I feel pretty good even at the end of the day. And that really was amazing. It was like a new feeling. And I hadn't got any more money in my bank account. Nobody had suddenly paid my mortgage off, or the world problems are still there. But I felt better, and I thought, well, that's interesting that circumstances can be the same outside, but I can feel differently based on my own practice of meditation. And it was such a gift. It's such a gift that I wanted to share. And I started teaching, I think, about 6 months after. And it's not to big myself up. It's just to say that I'd never had that such a strong desire to share something before. And I think when you find something, it's actually our natural nature as human beings to serve, to share good things with each other. Isn't that what gives the most joy in life when we're, the relationships, when they're working well? It can also be the source of the most sorrow if they're not working well. But the flip side is, how do I change them? I can't change other people. I had some, like most people, some pretty broken relationships in the family, and I was trying to resolve things in my own head. What words can you use? How can you repair these situations? How can you resolve things which seem unresolvable in terms of there's some disagreement on a fundamental level about something? How do you reach consensus or some way forward? And like many of us, I'd reached a situation where I just could not figure that out. And whenever I tried it, it just seemed to go wrong. And then when I started to meditate, within a year, those relationships were working properly again, and they've continued to for the last 20 years. And they were repaired. And what changed? I didn't say anything clever. I just became more peaceful. And if you tune into your true nature, problems resolve automatically. We're trying to solve problems from the outside all the time. If I do this, if I have this much money, if I go there, if I build this, if I buy that, or it doesn't work. It works in the short term at best. But this is good news, because the solution is really, really as simple as it could possibly be. It's about what I'm doing to look after myself. It's a win-win. It's not selfish to begin with charity with the self, because, as we said earlier, then everybody around you benefits. Yeah? If you're peaceful, if you're happy, you spread that. If you're angry, you spread that. Simple. Yeah? Make sense? Any questions? I've been talking for a while, so I thought, better ask. I don't think. This gentleman?
What has made you change after 30 years not believing in spirituality? What has made you change suddenly to you say you work in science, but what happened? Like you said, okay, that's enough of science anymore. I don't want that anymore, but I want spirituality in my life. What has
what
made you
changed?
change?
Yeah, what was the change? I still love science, I should say, but it's one of those interesting things where I really do believe that I'm sure some of you, if not all of you, have experienced this, that the hardest things that happen in life, when you look back, were actually the things that allowed you to change in a very positive way. And for me, what happened was I had some success in my 20s with my career. I started to achieve some of the goals I'd set for myself when I was a teenager. And I realized I was getting more unhappy. And I just did not know what was going on. And so I basically became depressed. I didn't know that's what it was. But I just knew I felt really bad. And it forced me to reevaluate my view of the world, because I felt so bad I couldn't really function. Now, at the time, it was horrible. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, honestly. And I think also it's that appreciation that it can sound really glib, and I know there's people who've been through a lot worse, but that everything happens for a reason. And I feel that, you see this in situations where the same situation can happen to different people, and yet it's how I respond to that situation that makes a difference. There was a great philosophical teacher called Jim Rohn, who said, it's not what happens to you that determines the quality of your life. It's how you respond to what happens to you. I thought, well, that's really interesting. And I couldn't respond. I just was totally bottomed out. So it forced me to change direction. That's the short answer.
And also you talk about serving others, like imparting the knowledge. As soon as you obtain the Raj Yoga knowledge, you wanted to share it with other people. But there's also the fact that if someone is not ready to accept spirituality in their life, you can take the horse to the water, but you can't make the horse drink the water.
Yeah, it's true.
So if someone is not ready to accept it, you may give them the best knowledge, the best advice, the best guide to spirituality, but they would turn back and say, that's not for me. And they would prefer to go to a counselor, pay a counselor or therapist to deal with the issues instead of getting spirituality. But have you encountered these people in your life during your experience, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of them, right? You know, like 2 years before I did the course, somebody had I remember having philosophical debates with people about religion. It's because I'd studied religious education at school, because we had to, and I'd studied evolution and genetics and all that stuff. When I got into a debate with someone, it was a no-brainer, you know. I'm not proud of it now, but I just ended up convincing myself more and more that I was right. You can't talk to someone like that. There's nothing, I would just, like you say, not ready, wrong timing. So, you can't force it on someone. It's natural, I think. I've seen people do the course and they want to go and tell their family, you know, you've got to hear this, you've got to hear this. And we try and advise against that because, or to be careful, because it can be not so good an experience. So
yes, but you can see them doing the wrong thing,
yeah.
and you try to help, but
yeah,
you can't do anything.
You know the best solution?
Don't do anything.
No. You know the best solution, based on what we've talked about? You know the phrase that Gandhi was famous for? Be the change that you want to see.
So change yourself first.
Yeah. Be an example. That's when people listen. They don't have to listen because they can see.
Yeah, they can feel it, they can see it. They can see yourself transform.
Yeah, if I'm a preacher and people think, oh, he's just and I'm not changing, then it's not true, is it? I'm just a parrot regurgitating something I've heard. You know, if I'm saying, oh yeah, meditation makes you really peaceful, and I'm like shouting and angry all the time, then who's going to listen? And it can take years. You can't force change. But it is important to serve the family, you know, going on to the sort of more, the expanding out from charity begins at home. There's also the phrase, you can choose your friends, you can't choose your family. But I do believe that nothing is an accident, everything happens for a reason. And the people that are part of our family unit, it's not by accident that we are in those units. And sometimes, you know, they're our greatest teachers because they push our buttons. And some obviously are very harmonious, but there's a full range, right? And I should have the intention, like it's good to have, shouldn't say should, bad word. It's good to have the intention to serve family. But it has to be a request, not a demand. You know, not trying, you've got to change. That doesn't work, as you said. So yeah, just be the example, and then you know, if I set a goal to be peaceful, everything will be okay anyway. Because whatever happens, I'll be peaceful. You know, if I go bankrupt, I'll be peaceful. If this and that happens, I'll be peaceful. The key is to be peaceful and to build enough power of peace in me that whatever does happen, that I still feel peaceful. Then I've won. And everybody else around me will win as well. You know, because when things go pear-shaped, this person's still peaceful. Amazing. You know, I'm interested in becoming like that. How did you do that? Or even if they don't ask you, they'll still take benefit. And when the timing's right for them, they'll think, yeah, I need to explore what that person was doing. Or, you know, yeah. So there's loads of stuff we could cover. I want to finish with a meditation. We've got some time if there's any more questions, though.
Okay, so it's possible to remain peaceful amongst chaos. Is that correct?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's correct.
And how can one manage that amongst, like, say, for example, being a mom and running a household and still remaining patient within myself with stuff like just little things like this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How is
Don't
it?
forget.
How can you remain in that state? Is my question.
Good question. I have to say, you've got to admire the mothers of the world. I can't speak from direct experience in that position. But I do know, I've seen people from all walks of life in all situations pull it off. The first thing is not to beat myself up from my starting point, because my starting point could be, there's going to be various levels of chaos. You know, some people could come to meditation where they've got no commitments and it's a slightly easier starting place. Although you don't know the challenges people are facing in their own minds, and you know, there are internal, external challenges we're not aware of. It's often that saying that if you knew someone's story, you'd always have compassion. If you could sit down and find out where someone's really coming from and understand it, then there'd be that empathy. But I think it's like when you start meditation and what you come across in your mind, that it's easy to have dislike for the self, because if I'm not patient enough, or I should be this, I should be that. I think we talk about the 8 powers of Raj Yoga, and one of the big ones is really tolerance and acceptance of the self, not of other people, of where I am now, and not feeling bad about my inability to be as patient as much as I want. That is such an important step of self-love, because like you say, you might get feedback, you know, you're out and about and you feel people are looking and saying, oh, you know, that mum, she can't control her kids, or whatever it is. And there's that judgment from outside. And the meditation, in my experience, what I've seen, it allows you to build up that power where those internal and external judgments just start to affect you less and less. It's a building of power from the inside out. And it's a natural progression, and the only thing that's really going to make a difference is somehow carving out time in my own routine, even if it's 5 minutes a day at the start, and just building it up from there. And the beauty of Raj Yoga meditation is that also learning to meditate on the go when there's chaos around you. That's why we practice open eye meditation, because, you know, if you're facing a situation, like if you're going into a meeting at work and it's a potentially stressful meeting, you can't say to the boss, do you mind if I just nip into the closet for 5 minutes and light some candles because I'm a bit stressed? You know, you've got to perform on the go, you've got to operate on the go. So one of the reasons we learn open eye meditation is to be able to, that the state that meditation is a means to an end, actually. What I'm trying to do is actually be fully connected to myself as a peaceful soul, where that becomes my natural waking state. It's sometimes called karma yoga, which is connection in action, is the basic translation, that I'm connected to my true self all the time. Now, to get to that state, I do need to carve out quiet time. But if I can only find 5 minutes, even if it's I need to get out of the house and go to the park or whatever I need to do, just to try and create that, even if it's 2 minutes. And if some days it doesn't happen because of circumstances, not to worry about it, but to see how much I can practice connecting with myself as a soul on the go. And sometimes it will feel like I'm only managing 1%. But literally, if you are having the thought, I am a soul, I am a peaceful soul, even if you're not feeling it, it is working. You know? Even if you manage a second or two a day, it's a starting point. Very sweet souls. So let's practice some meditation, because the hour's late evaporated as it usually does. So I'm going to do a guided meditation. This is a method that I use for myself that I find very useful in terms of focusing the mind on the soul. But don't worry if it doesn't work for you tonight. It may be your first time meditating, or it may be just you're not in the mood today, or whatever is fine. But I find this method is really good. So you can just listen to the words and see if you can follow it, see if you can create a similar visualization. If not, it's okay, you can practice it on your own as well. So just sitting comfortably, good to have the feet on the floor just in terms of feeling alert. And I won't do it now because of time, but I find meditation, it's good to acknowledge the body, even though we're focusing on the mind. You know, if you've got tension in the body, it's good to take some deep breaths. One of the best methods I find is breathing in. You can try it now, why not? Breathing in for the count of 5 or 6, whatever works for you. Breathing in quite quickly, maybe even to the count of 3, 4, and then just holding for a count of 5 or 6, and then letting the breath slowly out for 6 or 7. So it's like 4, 5, 6, or 4, 6, 7, or whatever works for you in terms of counting. And you find that you breathe in and hold, you can often feel the tension in the body. And as you hold it, it's almost like the breath collects that tension, it releases the tension in the muscles, and as you breathe out, you can let it go. And that can help relax the mind. So that's something to try. We can just do one now. Just breathe in for 3 or 4, hold for 5 or 6, and then breathe out to the count 6 or 7. So. Okay, so just bringing my attention to the center of the forehead, behind the eyes, the location of either soul, the point of light, the eternal, peaceful energy. And you can imagine that you're in a cinema. This is not a normal cinema, this is the cinema of your own mind. So there's just one seat in this cinema. It's a very big cinema. There's just one seat in the middle, and that's your seat. So imagine yourself sat on the seat. And like any cinema, you're looking forward in your mind's eye, and you can see the screen at the front, and there's speakers all around, surround sound, lots of noise coming in from the outside world, and that's okay. Just accept that. Don't need to be quiet outside for me to meditate. That's a misconception. It's about focus. And I can see through my physical eyes, but I'm trying to just practice being aware of my inner eye, sometimes called the third eye. So this is the inner eye that I'm using to imagine this screen of the mind in front of me. And I'm sat very comfortably on my seat as a soul, just observing the mind. Just observing the mind. And I may be aware of things that are happening on the screen, but the screen of the mind is basically full of so much stuff. It's unbelievable. Like everything that has ever happened to me in this life and beyond is on the screen somewhere. All memories, feelings, everything. It's absolute chaos. And there's lots of dramas. It's like there's a million films playing at the same time. Very difficult to make sense of, quite stressful to look at it. And that's the state of my mind. And it's okay, because I'm separate from my mind. I'm just watching all this as a soul. And we're usually lost in the screen, being knocked around by all the dramas. So just having the awareness of being a soul, separate from my thoughts and feelings, allows me this perspective of just watching. And the watcher is far more easy to start to feel peaceful as a watcher, rather than being lost in the chaos of what's happening in my own mind, in my own life. So that's a big screen, but I actually start to notice just to the right of that big screen, there's a smaller screen that I haven't really noticed before. Smaller screen. And on that screen there's a point of light. That's it. There's no dramas playing out. There's just a rather beautiful point of conscious energy. And there's two ways I can look at this. I can see this as a reflection of my true self, the soul. Or if I'm open to it, I could see this as the divine power, the supreme soul, who looks just like me, actually, a tiny point of consciousness. And what I want to do is I gradually want to pull the attention of the soul away from looking at this big screen of drama on the left. And just imagine the soul sort of just turning its head, turning your head, just starting to focus on this smaller screen with this very peaceful energy. Very peaceful energy. It's the energy of the soul itself. Just try and feel into that energy. What does peace feel like? What does it feel like? It's not a passive energy. It's very calm, but it's very vibrant. It has the seed of lots of other feelings within it. Like, if I think about the quality of peace, when I go into it, it also is the seed of enthusiasm. It's the seed of joy. It's the seed of the expression of love. It's a very beautiful, calm vibration that sets the scene for all these other wonderful feelings to start to grow. And actually now my mind is quite interested in this stuff. Maybe I just forgot about the other screen for a split second. And I was engaged with, this stuff's actually really nice. this is who I am, right? This other stuff is just stuff. I can, I can go back to it when I want. I don't have to spend all my time dealing with that stuff. I need to spend some time accumulating the power of connecting with myself as a soul. So I just see it and be aware when the mind's eye gets dragged back into, remembering what I want for dinner or remembering something I need to do tomorrow. And, there's all this stuff. I just keep thinking, okay, no, at the moment I'm practicing meditation. So I don't want to think about that stuff for now. I don't need to think about it. For now I want to focus on connecting with myself as a soul, so I bring my attention back to the other screen. What I find is, I gradually spend more time meditating or build up my practice, is that screen starts to grow in size and the other screen starts to shrink. And my mind starts to be more and more connected with this vibration of peace. Just see a few moments, you can experience that. Keeping the focus of the mind on this beautiful point of light that you are, this beautiful, peaceful soul. See if you can allow that beautiful energy to infuse the mind like a beautiful light that's spreading outwards like the sun, and actually allow that light to radiate even into the body itself through the head and shoulders, and just imagine it radiating and see if you can feel it just helping the body to also feel more peaceful. Allowing thoughts to slow down, allowing the gap between thoughts to expand with this feeling of peace. Then silence. The mind becomes still. Accepting any distractions around me, any noises, just being aware actually, myself as the observer, but enjoying my connection with myself as a soul. And then gently bringing my awareness back to where I am physically, back to the external. I just see as I start to come back to the physical world, start to bring my attention back, just see if I can just keep a thread connected to that observer, it's connected to that awareness of myself as a soul, and bring some of that back into my evening. Just keep that thread there. And I can build that thread, make it more powerful, make it more stable as I continue to make time each day to become charitable towards myself, the seed to being one who serves the self in the accurate way, in a loving way, and naturally serving others will flow from that state of being. Om Shanti. Om, I am a soul. Shanti, a being of peace.
Thank you, Matthew, for the wonderful talk and all the tools and tips given. Our next week talk, same time, same place, and the topic is the art of full stop. And the product of the week is Heart of Well-Being, the book, and it comes with the guided meditation CD as well. It's available in the shop, so you can browse through on your way out. So once again, to you and the online people who joined us, thank you very much and have a safe journey back home. Thank you.